Well, kind of getting an idea what I'm going to do here now. I'm going to make individual frames, and I can make them 8 foot by 7 feet, something like that. 7 feet tall is going to be tall enough. Take 3 frames for each side, so I need 24 feet long, and then there'll be 3 frames, of course, on top and 1 each on each end. I'm going to make those out of 1x2s or 1x3s. I haven't decided completely yet. Make those just like a framed wall, 2-foot centers, and then put visqueen on one side of them, so on the inside of them, and then they'll just kind of go together with some clamps or screws or something like that, and that'll make my paint booth in here. Well, I went up and drug out some boards. I got a bunch of 1-inch slabs. I took them all, stacked them up, and cut them off to a little over 8 feet, and I've got them stacked up in here in the hanger to dry out, and while I'm working on something else. Now I need to get the radial arm saw out and rip those down into the studs, either 2-inch or 3-inch. But before I do that, I want to get these wings out of here. I got the wing rack completed, the wing dolly, trolley, dolly, cart, whatever completed, and got the wings out of here. I've got a bunch of these slabs, 1-inch slabs of boards. A lot of them don't have a clean edge on them. They're just slabs right off of the log, so they've got wane on both sides of them. So the first thing I've got to do is go through those and rip those down so I have at least one clean edge that I can use for a guide to run along the fence. Well, using my radial arm saw, I've got it set up for ripping. Usually I'll take a piece of 2x4 or 1x or something like that that's got a straight edge on it and screw on or clamp onto these slabs, and then use the front of the front of my table on the radial arm saw for a fence and run those down there to rip off one clean edge on those. But I've got this little piece of, it's a kind of a 2.5-inch wide steel stud, and I'm going to try that and see how that works. It's a lot lighter and maybe easier to work with than a wooden piece. So I've got it screwed down with a couple of 3/4-inch lathing screws. They've got a washer head on them. So I'll got that all set up and ready to go now, and I'll turn on the dust collector and set my saw up to make that rip. I got a couple of stacks of sticks there. I think I've got more than enough for what I need. Of course, there's always some of them that are going to fail when they bring them out and start trimming them up. They have too many cracks in them or something. The idea here is to build 6, actually 8 stud walls out of those, 8 foot long, and I think I'm going to go 7.5 feet tall. And then I've got to have 3 pieces to go across the top to close in the top. Those will have to be 8 foot square. Of course, the 2 end pieces, I want them the same height as the sides. There'll be a top plate and a bottom plate, and then studs up the side of them, just like building a stud wall. So I'm going to run through those and find all of them that are as close to the same thickness as I can get, and cut those all to 8 feet even, and those will be my top plate and my bottom plate. I've gone through enough of those sticks to pick out 26 of them that are almost exactly 1 inch. So I can start trimming those up to 8 feet long. Then once I get those trimmed up, then I can do a little calculation. Since they're all pretty close to 1 inch even, I can just subtract 2 inches from my legs for my uprights. So if I want 7 foot 6 inches, I can just subtract and make it 7 foot 4 inches for my my studs, and for the 8 foot ones I can just make them 94 inches. I had a couple of boards left over that were quite a bit longer than the other ones I cut off. I think they're like 10 feet, and they're too long to support on the arms of that miter saw by themselves. So I found some stands I put out underneath them out on the outer ends, and I clamped them down to the table with a couple of clamps. I measured out 8 feet down that way and clamped on a piece of 2x4 down there for a stop, and that'll make it a lot easier for these clamps here on the front, where I've got it clamped down. They're not going to interfere with anything because all these boards are only 2 inches wide. I got enough of those sticks cut out for all my panels that I need, plus one extra. So I'll go ahead and stack those someplace up out of the way, and then I'll start cutting ones for the studs. For the 3 overhead panels, I'll need 15 of them, 94 inches long. So I'll change my stop there and set up and cut those first. Now this is all rough cut lumber, and it hasn't been run through a planer or a sander or blower or anything else. Well, it's got a lot of sawdust on it from the original cuts, and some of this stuff, the spruce, is really bad, and you see how fuzzy it is here where it's cut. It's got fibers that kind of tie together, and they kind of string out even with a sharp blade. So all of the wood has sawdust on it, and even these 2 boards that I used for a work table had sawdust on them. So what happens there is when you slide those boards down to the stop, the sawdust winds up building up against the stop here, and then it makes a buffer there and so your stop winds up not being accurate. I've got a couple of these are just cut off ends here, and I'll put those down, put my block on them so the sawdust will kind of go underneath that block. That way it'll give some place for the sawdust a relief for the sawdust to disappear into, so it doesn't build up so fast along that edge. I got 15 boards cut 94 inches and got them over and stacked up, and I moved my stop block up to 88 inches or 7 foot 4 inches and started cutting some more. There's 15 of them here, and I cut 14 of them the first go around. Well, I only need, what do I need, 30, 45, and 10, 55 of them. So I'm halfway there. Oh, I guess I screwed up my calculation a little bit there. I forgot I've already got my 15 cut out for the 3 panels that go on the top. So I only need 40, not 55. So I've got 29 of them cut. I got all my studs cut to length now. Some of these aren't near as pretty as a person might want, but I've seen worse stuff go into a house. So like I said, there's no structural integrity needed in this thing at all. It's just to hold visqueen up and to hold dirty air out and clean air in. I got the first panel scabbed together there, put it on 2-foot centers, just like building a stud wall with 6-inch studs. I put it together with 1/2-inch crown 2-inch staples, and I've got a Bostitch staple gun there, air stapler. Anyway, that's one panel. Now I got to figure out some way to brace it to keep it from racking. Now I'm kind of parsimonious with my wood. By the time I go up in the woods and cut down a tree, skid it out, load it up, haul it home, and put it on the mill, every piece is kind of valuable to me. So I try to get everything I can out of every log. I'll take the slabs that come off and turn those over and mill them and try to get 1-bys or something out of them, and so I wind up with as little waste as possible. Sometimes when I'm cutting flitches out or boards out, if I'm cutting a certain dimension like a 2-by or a 1-by or something like that, when I run down on the cant, I'll wind up with just a little bit more than what it takes to make a nice even number of boards out of it. So I'll wind up with some strips, and I save those too. They're not good for much of anything. You can use them for shims behind other wood to bring it out and stuff like that, but they're not structurally strong. Anyway, I save them anyhow just in case. Well, we got these 2 strips of spruce that were in that stack of wood with some of the 1-bys that I ripped up into studs. And one of these is about 1/4 of an inch, and the other one's about 1/8 of an inch. I can rip those into about 3-inch wide strips and use them for cross bracing, diagonal bracing on these panels, and they should work fine for that. So I cut off a 3-inch wide piece of that thin strip there, and I just ripped it with my little battery operated Milwaukee 6 1/4 inch circle saw. And then I stapled it on there with the 1/4 inch crown staples, which is plenty for that. That'll be nice and rigid. Only 10 more of them to go. Well, there's number 2. I got the 6 side panels and the 3 top panels done. Now the 3 top panels stick up taller than the side panels. They're a full 8 feet wide, 96 inches. The side panels are 7'6" or 90 inches. Well, I've just got the 2 end panels left to do. And I've got to do a little modification on those. I had forgot about that, but I had my top plate and my bottom plate cut for 8 feet. I'm going to have to cut 4 inches off of it because I want those 2 panels to slide in between the 2 sides on the side panels. If I'd left them 8 feet, they would have matched up to the outside of the side panels, which would have been fine, but the top panels wouldn't have overlapped them. And we could accommodate that by letting the plastic overlap them, but if I cut those 4 inches off of those plates, then they'll fit in between the 2 side panels. And then I also want to do a little modification on them. I've got to build a frame in one of them near the top for a filter. I've got some furnace filters here, and I'll put some filters in there so we can pull fresh air in, filtered air in through them. Well, I got all my panels cut now. I cut the 2 end ones, and I made the first one just like all the rest of them, except that I went ahead and cut the bottom plate and top plate off 4 inches so that they would fit inside of the side panels. This back one I did quite a bit different than I did the rest of them. The first inside stud I measured off 2 feet, but I put it with one edge of it right against the 2-foot mark instead of centered on 2 feet. And then I measured off 13 inches from there and put another stud in, and then I put the one on the 4-foot mark, and I put it right on the edge of the 4-foot mark instead of centered, and I measured off 13 inches from that and put another stud there. So we wound up with 2 extra studs. What the deal was on there, I've got some furnace filters, and those are 13 inches wide by 45 inches long. I cut some 13-inch pieces off of some of the scrap wood, and then I stapled those in 45 inches, and I put one of them so it'll go at the top of one bay, and one of them it'll go at the bottom of the other bay, so they're kind of staggered, so I can use those for filters in there. That one is all nailed up and ready to go. Well, I'll clean this out a little bit, and then next step here is to sheet those all in visqueen in plastic. Well, that's the last side panel. All the panels, side panels, top panels, and end panels, all covered with visqueen. This is what we used on that. I was thinking about cutting some strips or something like that of wood to use to staple down in a stapler, but I remember they had this. This is Central Pneumatic Harbor Freight plastic cap stapler. It uses 3/8-inch crown staples and shoots them through these little plastic caps, and they're just really nice for putting on sheeting like house wrap and felt roofing and stuff like that. When I first saw this at Harbor Freight, I thought it might be kind of a gimmick, a typical Harbor Freight tool that didn't work very well, but it was cheap enough I decided to try it. I'd been using these nails. I got a bucket of those that have these plastic washers on them for that, but you got to put each one of those in by hand, and this one shoots them in. But it actually is a pretty good unit. I don't know whether they still have them or not, but that's the item 99637, and it comes like that, and then you get a packet of staples and these washers in a package, and the washers all fit down this little tube right here, and it automatically slides the washer across there and sets it up for the staple to go through every time you pull the trigger. This gets a little sticky in here, and it'll fail every once in a while to kick a washer over there, but spray some WD-40 or something on there and lubricate that and get it working again. But anyway, it turned out to be a lot better thing than I thought it was going to be. So we got all those done. I got them stacked up outside right now. Have to clean the rest of that crap out of the back end of the hanger there. Get that opened up out there, back there, so I can put these panels together and get my paint booth put together.